Welcome back to another Ret Paladin video. Verabin here. Today we are looking at an extremely bursty PvP build that I am going to highly suggest that you try out. It does so much damage so quickly in PvP and it catches people off guard. This build is crazy for burst and I am excited to show it to you. We're going to look at talents and conduits and all that good stuff, so stick around. Let's take a look. Before we get started with the video, please be sure to hash that like button and subscribe for more Ret Paladin content. We're going to be doing content 2 or 3 times a week in Shadowlands, so you don't want to miss a thing. Also, check out the description in the video for links to Patreon and different merchandises that are available. There's a lot of different ways you can support the channel, including Amazon affiliates. And the way that works is you click below, and even if you don't buy the items that are linked, anything that you buy in there, proceeds of that will go to supporting the channel. So if you're enjoying the content, please consider supporting it in one of those ways. All right, so this is a clip against a Demon Hunter and Resto Shaman. Resto Shamans have really good mobility, so they're kind of tough to take down. This is not the first go in this match. This is the second go, so I just cut out the first part of it. But you can see we have Wings up, we have Seraphim up, and we're about to have Divine Toll up, so we're about to be able to pop off. Now, you can see he's already actually dropped Spirit Link Totem, so we can go ahead and switch over and burst. And the cool thing about this build is that you can burst someone down pretty quickly, even if it's not like right at the beginning of Wings. You can still run someone down after Wings is over. You can see in this case, the Shaman ends up dying after Wings is already over, so still a good hit. All right, so you can see in this clip we're against Warrior Paladin, and warriors are pretty tough for Ret Paladins to counter, so I'm just going to go right for the Holy Paladin. I've got a priest with me, so I'm hoping we can clear that bubble and get him killed pretty quick, but it turns out he is way softer than I thought, and he just ends up eating it. No bubble, no nothing. Alright, so now that you've seen this build in action, I wanted to break down a little bit about how this works and kind of talk about how the rotation goes when you're trying to burst someone down. So the talent build that I've been using looks something like this. I actually use Zeal, and you could probably switch Zeal for Righteous Verdict, and you would probably have pretty similar results. Neither one of them is really going to have a huge impact on your burst in this scenario. Righteous Verdict might be a little bit better, but I think overall Zeal ends up being better. I do run Blade of Wrath because it generates a little bit more of the holy power that will help you overall in the getting kills. And then the main components here is Seraphim and Sanctified Wrath. These are 2 really important components. And the cool thing about Sanctified Wrath is that it is just passive damage, where every time you pop a Templar's Verdict or use Seraphim, it's going to just do kind of additional passive burst. So it kind of just puts in this non-GCD damage that's really, really important to bursting someone down. Because you're only going to have a few GCDs to kill somebody in this meta because of how quickly it goes. They can recover really, really quickly, and especially in 2v2, where they just recently removed dampening from the beginning of the match. So now healers can actually do a lot more healing. So it used to be 20% at the beginning of the match, and now it's 0. So, and Seraphim, obviously, if you have not played with it, is extremely strong for burst. It gives you 8% crit, verse, and haste, and then it also is an additional 13% mastery, which is huge. The mastery is a huge component of this, you guys. So that is the talent build that I've been using. I switch it up every once in a while. Sometimes I'll use Divine Purpose, sometimes I'll use Holy Avenger, but I think Seraphim is gives you a much more consistent and much more harder 1-minute burst. So obviously Divine Purpose is going to give you more consistent damage over time, and it could end up giving you really good bursts, but it's RNG based, right? And Holy Avenger ends up being more like a defensive cooldown, because it doesn't increase the damage that you do necessarily, because in a 5 or 6 second burst window, you don't really have a problem generating holy power anyway, because you're doing things like Divine Toll and Wake of Ashes, and you're starting out with high holy power. So by the time your cooldowns are down and stuff, it doesn't really end up generating a whole lot of holy power that you would have had already. So the next part I want to look at is gear. You can see from my gear, I have about 194 eye level, and I am focused heavily on versatility. I have about 23% verse. I could have a little bit more than that, but I'm still working on getting some gear slots filled, but that's pretty high, I think, for verse. I see most people running 18, 20, 22% verse. So verse is really, really important. It gives you really passive kind of damage increases, and then it also scales really well with the 2-piece bonus from your for your PvP trinkets. So that 40% more verse gives you like, what, that's like 8%. Wait, is that math right? Let me run the math. 10%, 2.3 times 4. Yeah, so about 10% more damage, basically, is what this wearing 2 PvE trinkets is worth. So PvP trinkets, rather, when you have this much verse. So it gives you 40% more of the damage component of it. I don't think that is affected by diminishing returns, but I could be wrong there. So anyways, I'm running a verse heavy build, and then you can see I've got 27% mastery, 6% haste, and 9% crit. I try to lean more towards mastery for the same reason that I like versatility. It's kind of like passive damage that doesn't require, it ends up improving your burst no matter how many GCDs you hit. Almost all our damage we do is holy damage, besides our melee attacks and stuff, so it ends up being a pretty kind of a flat damage increase. So I think mastery is pretty good. Unfortunately, with the PvP gear, you don't really have that many options as far as getting mastery. So, like the rings have mastery, but a lot of the other gear pieces don't have mastery. So you don't really have the option in some cases. But the other important part of this build is obviously the Kyrian Covenant. So Pelagos is going to be your best bet here. And combat meditation is another important part of this burst. And when we look at the rotation, you'll kind of see how that plays out. But Divine Toll ends up increasing your mastery by 350. That's actually reduced significantly in PvP, but you can imagine why, right? So if it gave us 350 mastery in PvP, that would be equivalent to 27%, 27 or 30% mastery. So that would be crazy for us. That would be like 30% more damage on a lot of our hits. So it would be pretty overpowered as far as improving Wake of Ashes and all that good stuff. So anyway, that is reduced by a lot in PvP. I think it's reduced by 50%, and then it lasts 50% longer. That was a recent change that was put into place. And then Ringing Clarity as well. I still don't have an upgraded version of this Potency Conduit, but this one is another important part of it. Based after the nerf, it's not as good as it was before, but combined with Lawbringer, it still gives you an additional a chance to have an additional procs of Judgment, which is going to increase your damage done. It increases your holy power generation as well, which allows you to squeeze in more Templar's Verdict. So that is definitely a really, really important one. And then I like to use Shielding Words here as well. That's going to be one that doesn't increase your burst, but increases your survivability. And then in a few weeks, we'll actually be able to get a second Potency Conduit. And I'm not sure which one of these is exactly going to be the right one. I feel like Virtuous Command is probably going to be the play. I need to get an upgraded version of that as well. I was thinking Templar's Vindication might be really good, but when I've tried to play this before, it really just doesn't do a whole lot of damage. I would think that this would be another just proc-based kind of improvement to our burst, but I actually think that maybe Virtuous Command is going to be the play, because it'll increase, it'll cause our Templar's Verdict and stuff to do additional damage, and I think that starting with the Judgment, and then you'll get the Virtuous Command buff, and then doing a Templar's Verdict, and then doing a Divine Toll will get you the Virtuous Command buff as well, and then you'll be able to pop a little bit more damage. So I think that one might be the play once we can use 2 Potency Conduits. All right, so to start this burst sequence, you are obviously going to want to go ahead and get 5 Holy Power online. So I'm going to run this a little bit in slow-mo so you can kind of see what's going on. And then once you have 5 Holy Power, at that point, you can pop Seraphim, then you can pop Wings. It doesn't really matter what order you pop those in. Wings is off the cooldown. You're going to want to pop Divine Toll. That's going to give you the Pelagos Mastery buff. Then you're going to want to do Wake of Ashes to get back to 5 Holy Power. And then at that point, you are basically just trying to do as much damage as possible, prioritizing Judgment and Hammer of Wrath over Crusader Strike, because Hammer of Wrath and Crusader Strike, or Hammer of Wrath and Judge are going to do a lot more damage, and then Judgment is going to buff your finisher. So you can see in this clip just how much damage this thing does. Please be sure to hodge that like button and subscribe. See you in the next one.